Mermaids! Today's episode is about mermaids and sirens and how beautiful women were in the past. The angels were willing to leave their posts to take on a curse just so that they could lay with human women. And the progeny of angels and human women, if you may already be aware from my other videos, that's the story of the Nephilim. The giants, the story of the giants is angels laying with human women, and their progeny were the giants. Also, the women that laid with the angels, the human women that laid with the angels, are the first witches, which is something God didn't like. They were given information before God wanted them to have it, and then it came out in a distorted way, and these women became the first witches. And as a punishment for this, these human women that laid with the angels were turned into the sirens. And if you look in Greek mythology, there's two different versions of sirens. I guess we're just getting into it. We're also going to talk about "Oh Brother, Where Art Thou?" We're going to talk about the Odyssey. We're going to talk about Ulysses, and probably Hylas and the nymphs. We're going to talk about movie Mermaids, Hans Christian Andersen's Little Mermaid, the story, the Disneyfication of a story that has a tragic ending, which is the Disney Little Mermaid. That the mermaids have red hair and a lot of depictions of them, and that relates to the Nephilim being the progeny of angels and human women. Esau from the Bible, I think the name Esau means red and hairy. Did you know that Chewbacca from Star Wars and Luke Skywalker were related? They are. Luke Skywalker's dad was Anakim Skywalker. There's a tribe of people called the Anakim in the Bible, and they have the blood of the angels in them, and they come up, I think they come up in Jeremiah, but it's other parts, just mentioned briefly in different places, but they are in the Old Testament, and they talk about the Anakim. So you have Anakim Skywalker, who doesn't know who his dad is. You have Shmi Skywalker, who had some kind of, I don't know, Luciferian divine misconception, or whatever you want to call it, where midichlorians and all this stuff. So Darth Vader doesn't know who his daddy is, and Darth Vader's name is Anakin Skywalker, which just means Anakim, probably. And so they're of the bloodlines of angels. That's the mystery of this, because they're called Skywalkers, like angels, right? So the surname is Skywalker. And Chewbacca is a Bigfoot, and the Bigfoot is the progeny of angels having sex with things. I'm going to read this. We're going to read from Genesis, Jude, and Book 1 of Enoch. And so the angels had sex with human women, and their progeny were the Nephilim, and they're the Nephilim giants. And all throughout history, there's depictions of talking about the giants and how they're covered in hair and how they're hairy. But also, as I'm going to read to you from the Bible, is that the angels that left their posts entered into strange flesh, which means they had sex with the different beasts and animals and whatever, dinosaurs and everything, whatever was here in the old days before the floods. And they created all kinds of trouble. And the women that laid with the angels, you know, they were very beautiful. So the angels started telling them secret information, you know, maybe because they liked them. I'm not sure why, that's not really stated. But anyway, they were given secrets of witchcraft and sorcery and all this stuff. And it was displeasing to God. So as a punishment for laying with the angels that left their posts and becoming witches and doing things that were displeasing to God, they were given a curse themselves, and he turned them into sirens. In Greek mythology, there's two versions of sirens, one with the lower half of a serpent, and what I would say, which now I might have to amend because I'm going to have pictures, there's going to be slides inserted into this video. The women that laid with the angels were turned into sirens. So you could also say mermaids, because some of them had the lower half of like a serpent or a fish. Some of them had the head of a woman and the body of a bird, and breasts. And those are the depictions in some of the paintings. When they show Homer's Odyssey, they show Ulysses and his crew we're going to go into the story of the Odyssey and the Sirens. I'll come back to the origin story of the witches. So, no, actually, we're going to do the witches first. So, the first witches were the women that laid with the human women that laid with the angels. And I said that God changed their lower half so that you couldn't have sex with them. But we know that the angels went around after strange flesh, which was probably, and the Nephilim, the progeny of the angels and human women. They also went around like screwing animals and stuff just to get on with it. And this made the world very perilous, and there are some that suppose, as I agree with, that probably this has something to do with the floods. Like when God flooded the earth, it was part of it was that it became perilous for man. So he's like, we're just going to wipe it clean and start over again. So he said he's going to take Noah and his family, and they're going to be his people he's going to watch over through the floods. And then probably there were some creatures and beasts and, you know, maybe incorporeal life forms that are trapped between heaven and earth that survived after the floods. And there's all kinds of theories on surviving the floods. But the point is that we're talking about mermaids today. So I said that God made the lower half of the women, the sirens. He made some of them have the bottom half of a fish because you can't have sex with them. Was my theory. But seeing ancient depictions and sculptures of stuff of the sirens, they were like fish with two tails, like their legs were turned into tails. So what I used to say is, look at that dirty Starbucks cup. She's spreading her legs for you so you can get in there, because the Starbucks mascot is a siren, and that's a known thing. And you can look up, it's like an old symbol. It's not even a new symbol. Like they took the old symbol of a siren and they put that on the Starbucks cup. Why they did that, I don't know. What Starbucks means, I haven't even decoded what the meaning of Starbucks means. But it's a dirty thing. Their logo has a fish, a siren, a witch. The first witch is spreading her legs for you, and then that's what, you know, you're drinking in that sigil every time you drink Starbucks. And but those are, as you'll see in the slide, I'll put a slide up now of a depiction of a siren. So check it out. See that? She's spreading her legs for you, and that's the same. That's the Starbucks logo, that serpent fish lady or whatever you want to call it. And there's other depictions of this. I also guess some of the other versions of the sirens, like in Greek, of the ancient Greeks, was that they had, like in the Odyssey, the story of Ulysses. You know the story of Ulysses and the Odyssey? The sirens, which are the first witches, because they laid with the angels, and the angels gave them secret knowledge. This is what you know about the sirens, probably, unless you know more than me, is that they would lure men to their deaths with the song of the siren. So a lot of times when they talk about a woman that's like a sexy singer, they say, oh, here's this, you know, they'll do a review of her album, and they'll say, this sexy songstress, she's a siren. Siren would lure men to their deaths with words, like you could call it spell casting, you could call it singing. But in the Odyssey, which is an epic poem, it's like some people say it's like the first superhero story or whatever. Ulysses going on the Odyssey, and he travels around in a boat, and they're going into a place where they know that the sirens live, the island of the sirens. So I'm just going to go on. So at some point, Ulysses says, hearing the sirens will make you go mad, and then the men crash their ships on the rock because they want to be with the sirens. So they get seduced by the song of the sirens, and then the sirens kill them and eat them. So I'll show depictions of that. I'll let you know when the slides are coming up. So Ulysses says, tie me to the mast of the ship. I want to hear the song of the siren and make it so that I can't move or I can't get loose. Fix me fast. And then he tells them to cover it, put wax in their ears or something, so that his crew can't hear the song of the sirens so that they don't go mad and all die because he's on an odyssey, right? So they do, and then the sirens start flying around, and in the paintings, I'm going to insert a painting here soon. J.W. Waterhouse, I want to talk about him. I'll get to that in a little bit. I want to show some images of J.W. Waterhouse. His name is Waterhouse, and he was the artist that I had a fondness for in my developmental years. And I thought, look at these beautiful women he painted. He was obsessed with mermaids, sirens, and he did the paintings you're going to see of Ulysses being tied to the mast while his crew is rowing the boat, and the sirens are flying around him. And these are the sirens with the body of a bird. So it has a woman's head and breasts, and then the rest of them is like a bird. And there's various depictions of what the sirens, it's again a punishment for God. He made them not human anymore, or whatever. I used to say so that you couldn't have sex with them, but I don't know what the truth of that is. That was just my joke that I made about it. And that's why the Starbucks cup was so dirty, because it's a fish with two tails spreading her legs for you so you can get in there. But really, like old depictions of the sirens, they do have two tails. So he turned their legs into tails and threw them into the ocean. I don't know, keep them away from people. I don't know why he made some of them into birds. But such is the story of the sirens. And so here's a picture from J.W. Waterhouse of Ulysses tied to the mast with the sirens flying about him. Okay, and also I'm going to show you another picture of, this. I think it's another version of the Odyssey, but it's not by J.W. Waterhouse. And it's the sirens, like they ate the guys. And so here's another a painting about the Odyssey from another artist. I forget who this guy's name is. He's not as famous as J.W. Waterhouse. So here's this. Yuck, right? So that's the thing that was a problem about the progeny of the angels and the human women they entered into. Their children were the Nephilim, and the Nephilim were cannibals. They were bigger than us, and they ate people. And God forbids cannibalism. So, and especially probably since it was his sons that left their posts, which are the angels, that they knew when they did it that God wasn't going to like it, and they were willing to take on a curse. This is something that I think is also in Enoch. But that's the one thing I don't have for this episode, is where in Enoch it says that the angels were willing to take on a curse to leave their posts. So they did it together. They knew they were going to get in trouble for this, but they couldn't. The women, you don't understand, these women were so hot. These angels were willing to take on a curse just to have sex. So look at look at what God did with women, gave them the power of the womb. Now they're attacking the womb. You can look in my channel and see the queue. I have like 3 videos about attacking the womb. So the Nephilim were cannibals, and it grieved God. Think of Titan, how the giants go around and eat the people and stuff. And that's a story of giants like Jack and the Beanstalk, B5 Fo, I Smell Englishmen, and he would eat the people. Well, this grieved God, and where do I want to go with this now? Well, we'll read from the Bible now. We're going to go to Genesis 6 and 7. Or no, it's just Genesis 6, 1 and 4. Sorry. So get your Bibles out if you want to. I'm going to read from the Bible. Genesis 6, 1 to 4. When man began to multiply on the face of the ground, and daughters were born to them, the sons of God, that's the angels, saw that the daughters of men were fair, super hot. They were gorgeous, right? Beautiful. More beautiful than these hags we have now. Look at all the nasty stuff they do. God saw that the daughters of men were fair, and they took to wife such of them as they chose. That's a weird way to say it. Then the Lord said, My spirit shall not abide in man forever, for he is flesh, but his days shall be 120 years. The Nephilim were on the earth in those days, and also afterward. And the sons of God came into the daughters of men, and they bore them children. These were the mighty men that were of old, the men of renown. And now we're going to 5. I didn't realize I'd go further. Genesis 6:5. The Lord saw that the wickedness of man was great on the earth, and that every imagination of the thoughts of his heart was only evil continually. And the Lord was sorry that he had made man on the earth, and it grieved him to his heart. So the Lord said, I will blot out man whom I have created from the face of the ground, man and beast and creeping things and birds of the air, for I am sorry that I have made them. But Noah found favor in the eyes of the Lord. And that's where I'm stopping reading from there. So angels left their post to have sex with human women, and I don't know, that's making me rethink the Nephilim. You're watching me think out loud, because it says the Nephilim were on the earth in those days. The Nephilim were on the earth in those days. So the Nephilim aren't the progeny? So is it maybe that the Nephilim are not the progeny of the angels that left their posts in human women? What are they then? They're the giants, right? That's what we're told to think. But I'm reading it from the Bible. Then the Lord said, my spirit shall not abide in man forever, for he is flesh. I don't know, maybe it is. That's what I came to think. Maybe when we get to Enoch that'll make more sense. Let's read from Enoch now. First book of Enoch, 19:2 and 29. No, just 19:2. The women also of the angels who went astray shall become sirens. Right there is in Enoch. Enoch is apocrypha. It's books around the Bible that used to be considered canon, but they took them out and they said Enoch's not canon anymore. And there's some dispute as to whether book 2 and 3 of Enoch are like fake. But book 1 of Enoch, I think, is used to be considered canon. It's not anymore, for whatever reason. But there's a lot of interesting stuff in Enoch. That's why people are talking about it now. It helps create a context. And even in Enoch, it basically talks about Jesus. So it's like it's more substantiation for Jesus, but it also gives some of what the world was like. Enoch was a grandfather of Noah, if I'm not mistaken. Or Noah's father or grandfather, I can't remember which one. So, in 19:2 of Enoch, the women also of the angels who went astray shall become sirens. See that? They went astray. How'd they go astray? I think it's in another part of Enoch. That's the part I don't have written down. And it's where the angels gave them a knowledge that God didn't want them to have. And then that was roots and witchcraft and all that kind of stuff. That's why I said that they were witches. So here, God made them sirens. The sirens are, and here's my notes, sirens are two kinds. Mermaids, half fish, and then the other are half bird, half human. And they both hypnotize men and lead them to their deaths. It's the song of the siren. And now I'll show you some pictures of sculptures and stuff of the sirens that have the bird bodies. I'll put those slides in right here. Okay, so that's part of the ancient Greeks. And there are a lot of people that believe that these things were around back then, that the world is not what we were led to believe. And that the Greek gods and stuff were fallen angels, or the mighty men of old, which are the progeny of well, let's just say fallen angels. They left their posts. They didn't fall. They like ran down here to you know, because the women were so hot. So now we're going to go to Jude, and it's in Jude 1, 6 to 7, 6 and 7. So, and angels who did not keep their proper domain, but left their own abode, he has reserved in everlasting chains under darkness for the judgment of the great day. So, he's talking about those angels that left their posts to have sex with the human women. So they're in chains till they're judged, right? I don't know if that means that they were released from their chains for the short season, or if they just stayed there. But anyway, it means that God was angry. So let me read that again. And the angels who did not keep their proper domain, but left their own abode, he has reserved in everlasting chains under darkness for the judgment of the great day, as Sodom and Gomorrah and the cities around them, in a similar manner to those, having given themselves over to sexual immorality and gone after strange flesh. What does that mean? I'm supposing that it means, because other people have talked about this too, and I was like, yeah, it kind of makes sense. What is strange flesh? What were the angels, his sons that failed him? What were they having sex with? Other creatures? Were they making animal-human hybrids? Were they making animal hybrids where they mixed two kinds of animals together and then they had sex with them? Well, whatever it is that they were doing, that's strange flesh, and God didn't like it. Does strange flesh include incest things, or it's just sexually immoral things? But it makes me think of like beasts and creatures, like where angels screwing dragons and stuff like that. And are some dragons, do some angels look like dragons? Because there's descriptions of different angels, and they use some of those descriptions of angels to be the angels that the evil units fight in Neon Genesis Evangelion. So, like the wheels within wheels with eyes on the wheels, and there's the cherubim and the seraphim with 6 wings, and then there's angels with like 4 multiple faces and stuff like that, and the different descriptions of them. So yeah, like it's not just that man messed up, it's that the angels kind of messed us up. So who's really to blame? Were we corrupted? Was it when we have free will, but angels have free will too, but they only get they knew more than us, the angels, so they have a chance to make a mistake one time, and if they blow it with God, they're out. But God gave us a redemption. He gave us the ability to repent, so that when we should go to hell, I don't even know you, whatever you did. I know what I did. I don't know if it's worth going to hell, or whatever you did is worth going to hell. But some people do awful things, and they repent, and they have a chance of getting into heaven. Some horrible people that you wouldn't believe probably got into heaven. But when the angels mess up, that's it. It's like once and done. They're out and they get the boot because they know more than us. So the angels that fell to earth corrupted us. So as I read in Genesis how grieved God was because we were using our free will to go against him instead of worshiping him, we're trying to build the Tower of Babel and shoot arrows into heaven and attack God. These were all things that were done under the influence of angels or demons or whatever, if angels turned into demons or whatever, because what's in the New Testament, it's the casting out of demons. And even in the Old Testament, God says, that he sent like demons to King Saul he sent evil or the devil to King Saul or whatever. God said about sending demons or spirits or whatever to mess with different kings so that they would do what God wanted them to do. So God was using everything under his command to say, go enter into this person and make problems because my people, the people of Israel in the Old Testament, he would have, they're not being good, they're worshiping false idols. So then he would go into a king and say, go attack my people, they need reproving, and they'd be killed and captured and stuff like that, and you'd give them a chance to repent, whoever survived. So we used to be pretty bad in the past, but I would dare say that even if you take it back to the Garden of Eden with Adam and Eve, it was the influence of the serpent What does that mean? Is that like a dragon or something? I don't know. But, you know, there's a Leviathan in the ocean. And the Japanese believe in Godzilla, that's their kami that watches, Kami, that watches over them, which is a sea serpent, which I guess is relatable to the mermaid thing. Don't worry, we're going to get into Hans Christian Andersen and Little Mermaid and all that stuff. And Splash with Daryl Hannah, and Cold Skin and The Lore, which are more recent. There's been a flurry recently. Like, I don't watch movies anymore, but I am now aware that there are a lot of mermaid movies, and the whole impetus for this episode is that somebody near and dear to me said, "Oh, I love mermaids," and I said, "You know they're evil, right?" So I want to do the episode, and I had to do some learning myself so I can explain to them, like, in detail, so that they can look it up themselves online, because they will, probably, you know, whatever. That it's not good to love mermaids. It's the mermaids. Mermaids are the first witches. And being a mermaid is a punishment from God. You shouldn't think that that's cool. The mermaids are the sirens, and the sirens lure men to their deaths. So you get why that's possible now when people say, "Oh, we're like in a new age of Jezebel, Jezebel.com." Is that even a website anymore? But you know about Jezebel, right? They threw her out of the tower, and then they trampled her with the horses, and they said, "Okay, back up the horses and run over again." And then the dogs ate her flesh, and all that was left was like part of her skull and her hand. Yeah, she was bad. She was bad. She told people to live sexually immoral, and she was like the wife of the king. And then she had a lot of influence over people. And then they got her. Or maybe not a king, but it was like some kind of ruler. I forget who her husband was. I should know. I'm learning. So, we didn't even get to 7 yet, did we? Oh yeah. As Sodom and Gomorrah and the cities around them, in similar manner to these, having given themselves over to sexual immorality and gone after strange flesh. So we know about Sodom and Gomorrah. When they do an act that God doesn't like, that some of the men of a certain persuasion that aren't just blowing each other all the time, they do sodomies. So I don't know if you know this, but in America, for a long time, up until modern times, there was laws against sodomy. You could get arrested even if you weren't gay. If you were doing a sodom, you could get arrested for it. I don't know if that's still in the books in different states and different places in the different states in America, but that was one of the laws that was still in the books. Like, you couldn't do sodomy, straight or gay. It was not. It was illegal. And gone after strange flesh are set forth as an example, suffering the vengeance of eternal fire. And he locked those angels up in chains. It was a punishment. They're not even with us anymore. Unless they were released after Jesus' millennial reign for the short season that I do believe that we're in. But those angels, as we read from Genesis, were locked up in chains. Or was it in Enoch? No, it's in Genesis. So, he did not like that they came down here to have sex with human women. And what does Jesus say when he's being tested by the Sadducees and the Pharisees, and they're trying to catch him in a legalistic way? And they say, well, there's a woman, and she was married to one of 7 brothers, and then her husband died. So then another one of the brothers took her as a wife, and then he died. And all 7 brothers had the same wife. Same woman was passed down to all the family, and they're all dead. In heaven, whose wife is she? And then what does Jesus say? In heaven, we're not given to marriage. That's for down here on earth. In heaven, we're more like the angels. But I'm telling you, these women must have been so smoking hot, total smoke shows, because they left their posts knowing that God wasn't going to like it, just to have sex, just to get laid. So angels get horny. And I wonder if that's why that's why it says that women are supposed to cover their heads when they're in church. I mean, I suppose it's a form of submissiveness, but maybe it's because angels used to be in church. I think demons are in church now. But I think the angels used to be in church, and I wonder if it wasn't because maybe women Maybe angels today still fall for women. That's not just that Nicolas Cage, Meg Ryan movie from the 1990s. Remember that? I think it was called City of Angels, where Nick Cage was, oh, I love her, I love her, man. And he was the angel that fell because he was in love with Meg Ryan. And then there was that song by the Goo Goo Dolls, and I want you to know who I am. Remember that nonsense? It was a hit. It was a hit song. What's a Goo Goo Doll? It sounds obscene. It's like voodoo. Goo Goo Voodoo. Is that sex magic? What's a Goo Goo Doll? I don't know. But let's go to 8. So I read to you from Jude 6 and 7. Let's go to Jude 8 and see what it says. Likewise also these dreamers defile the flesh, reject authority, and speak evil of dignitaries. Yet Michael the archangel, in contending with the devil when he disputed about the body of Moses, dared not bring against him reviling accusation, but said, the Lord rebuke you. So what he's saying is that a good angel obeys God. So Archangel Michael didn't rebuke the devil for trying to take Moses' body. He said, Jesus rebukes you. Even the angels, when they do it right, it reminds me of an exorcism where you're not doing the exorcism. You say, by the authority of Jesus' name, in Jesus' name, in the name of the Lord, I bind you demons, I rebuke you demons, I command you to be tormented before your time, I bind you, and I command you into the abyss. Now go into the abyss and stay there till the Lord himself judges with you to do as he wills. Right? All these things are done through us. We're like a conduit for God to work through us. We're his holy temple, and from his holy temple, by the authority of the name of Jesus, can we do these things. So it's interesting that's in here with Jude, that he's making a note of it, that Archangel Michael, who's really in good with God, right? He never failed the way that Satan or the devil or Lucifer or whatever that guy's name was when he was an angel, and the other angels that rebelled against God. They thought they could take on the old man and win. What, are you crazy? He wouldn't give you the car keys? He wouldn't let you go fool around with women? These guys didn't get cast out of heaven. They left their posts, they left their abodes, and then they came down here with human women. Look at what happened in the Old Testament to these guys. Women destroy empires. Not that they're evil, it's just that they're so beautiful that when they get it wrong, the guys just, their brains turn into goo-goo. They turn into goo-goo. The guy, David, Prophet King David, Solomon, what messed up their lives? David and Bathsheba and Solomon and his wives that were pagans, they got him to worship false idols. You think that was just for real estate? No, like they must have been so hot. So anyway, mermaids. So there you have it. Strange flesh. What do you think that means? I'm interested in comments if maybe you've seen some videos of other people of a similar ilk as the kind of content that I make. What is strange flesh? I'm gonna think it's basically having sex with animals and making angel-animal hybrid creatures, right? Because there is another thing in the Bible, I forget where it is, that says no longer will the womb of a beast carry a man. What does that mean? That's in the Bible. It's got to be Old Testament, but it's like, no, from this day forth or something like that. It's God saying, no longer will beasts give birth. No longer will the womb of beasts carry man. So what? Animals were having human babies? What does that mean? You know, during World War II, the Russians put a human embryo or a fetus and it was growing inside of an orangutan. And what's an orangutan? They're red and hairy, like Esau. So that's interesting. So anyway, that's the thing. Esau was super hairy. Does he have some of the angel blood in his bloodline or whatever? What was his mom doing? I don't know. But that it could live. Like, we didn't hear what, I never heard what the follow-up to that story was, that they did do it successfully. So the Russians said that they successfully they had a human child growing in the womb of an orangutan. That's weird, right? I don't know what happened from that, but I'm sure that they never stopped doing the research. They probably did it again 7 times over. That's a long time ago, right? But the orangutans are not unlike a Chewbacca or something, right? Remember how I said that Chewbacca is a Bigfoot, and the Bigfoot are the Nephilim, and so I would say make Luke Skywalker and Chewbacca relatives, because they're the Anakim of the Bible. So the Little Mermaid, Hans Christian Andersen's The Little Mermaid story, it has a tragic ending. A lot of people know this. I'm sure they put it in TikToks, but I've known it for a long time. I had a poster. Here's soon I'm going to insert the slide of the Little Mermaid poster. Let me tell a story that it's about mermaids. This is probably in the 1990s. Whenever the Little Mermaid came out on VHS, I was interested in animation, because I was like, I'm an artist and I draw. Like, how do you make money just making pictures and stuff? So I was like, well, you can work in animation. So I knew that there was a guy that I never worked for Disney, not that you ask, but I knew that there was a guy that got fired at Disney because they had him draw artwork, like the movie poster, or at least the VHS release poster for Little Mermaid, so that in a video store all across the country, wherever they sold, there'd be this poster. And then the castle of the Little Mermaid's castle, he drew a giant phallus, and it's a gold penis, and when I went to the video store with my girlfriend at the time, I said, oh, I want that poster, because this is how video stores work. They'd have the posters hanging up, and then when they took them down to put the new posters advertising the coming releases, they would take the old posters and put them in a box, and then you could just have them for free and they'd give them away. So, and some places charge like $1 a poster or whatever, but some places gave them away because they always had new posters coming in and people to ask for them. So instead of holding posters for people, they say, we put them in a box, whoever gets them, gets them. So it was a sought after thing. If you liked a movie and you wanted the poster for it, you would hope that you'd see the poster wasn't up on the wall, and you're like, where's the poster for Lust in the Dust? I need that poster of Divine, it's like, whatever, evil, I want the Evil Dead 2 poster, whatever nonsense it was. So I saw that the Little Mermaid poster was in that box and nobody had taken it, and I said, get me that poster. And she said, why do you want the poster for the Little Mermaid? Because that's not the kind of thing I would want. I was a grown up and a man, and it's like a weird thing. Like, why would I want that? I said, no, get it. I'll explain to you later. I'll show you later. I said, just grab that poster, because I didn't even want to touch it. I was like, I'm embarrassed to even have it in my hands. But I was like, well, if I make her get it, then I can have the poster, because I knew that there was a big gold dick on it. I wanted to have. I thought it was funny. Such as was my sense of humor at the time, and probably really not much has changed. I'm laughing at it now. So here's the poster of the Little Mermaid with the phallus in it. Okay, so, and imagine that being on a poster, and some of the VHS release posters were pretty big, so this was a pretty big poster. So when I showed it to her, she cackled, and then it wound up becoming her poster, and we were shacked up. So she hung that poster, it was like became her poster, but I didn't care because it was still around. I just wanted it because I knew that there was a big stunga drawn on there. And now that poster's probably worth money, right? It's probably worth a couple bucks if you have the poster for the Little Mermaid VHS release with the stunga on the castle. So now you've seen it. And the Little Mermaid, a lot of depictions of mermaids, they give them red hair. Like even when they did the remake of the Little Mermaid, they changed the color of her skin. Who cares? It's the story of a mermaid. You can do that. I don't have a problem with that. I mean, I know that they do it to whatever the reasons Disney does it. I don't care. But they still made sure that she had the red hair. Like, well, it's a Little Mermaid. She's got to have red hair. Why? Because the Nephilim had the red hair, which may or may not be, which now I'm going to have to research into that, and it might be a whole other episode. Were the Nephilim actually the children of the angels who left their posts in human women? Who were the Nephilim? How'd they get here? I'm going to say probably that they still were, but what I just read maybe adds some like questioning about what I read from Genesis. Maybe, I don't know, who are the Nephilim? We know that they're the giants. We know that they're red and hairy like Esau. And all the depictions throughout history have them with the long red hair, and that's kind of how Chewbacca looks like. And Bigfoot, so they talk about the big. You see the movie Harry and the Hendersons? Yeah, what does he look? He has like kind of reddish hair, okay? And so, and then when Jacob was pretending to be Esau, what did he do? He put the skin of a goat on his arms because Esau was so hairy that when his father touched his arm, he would feel the hair like the skin of a goat. Goats are covered in hair. I used to have goats. They're like dogs. They're smarter than dogs. They get in all kinds of trouble. They're adorable. And they give milk. You ever try to get dog milk? Yeah. So anyway, Little Mermaid, Hans Christian Andersen's Little Mermaid is, the ending's different. The Little Mermaid in Disney, they give it a happy ending where she gets the prince and she gets her legs. But in the Hans Christian Andersen, basis for that Disney cartoon, she turns into sea foam at the end. She dies. She doesn't get anything she wants. That's not good for Disney princesses. And also, the mermaids are the sirens, and they lure men to their deaths. They don't marry them. And they're witches. So, for little girls. So, there's Daryl Hannah in Splash. They made a movie that was a big hit in the 1980s. Maybe you never heard of it. It was Tom Hanks, Daryl Hannah, and John Candy. And it was the man falls in love with a mermaid, but she doesn't kill him. And she's a blonde. It was Daryl Hannah. Remember her? You may remember Daryl Hannah from Kill Bill. She was the cool chick with the eye patch that got her eyes poked out, and she's running around the camper with no eyeballs, and she's screaming and everything. Kill Bill. That's a good movie, right? So there's been a flurry of mermaid movies recently, and they're popular. I even remember Reformed New Ager Doreen Virtue, who I don't think it's wrong to say the former queen of the New Age movement. She brought so much weird stuff to the world. Doreen Virtue said it herself. You can go find her YouTube. She's a Christian now. Good, great. And it's great that a lot of people that were New Agers, if they want to follow Doreen Virtue and do the things she does, she knows it's Jesus, so she gave up all the New Age garbage. Doreen Virtue is the woman that gave us all these different kinds of angel cards and fairy tarot cards. She made like 1 million tarot card decks, and she was obsessed with mermaids. And her and her friends used to put on mermaid tails. These are adults. And they used to do a childish thing, and they'd swim around and pretend to be mermaids. And if you look up like image searches and videos and GIFs, you can see it was a thing they did in the 1950s where you could go to an aquarium and they'd have like these special tanks, and the girls would put on mermaid tails and they'd swim around in the water, and then they'd come up for air, breathe in. They had like tubes of air that they would breathe in so it could stay underwater, and they'd keep going back to get air. And they'd put on shows, and you would watch mermaids swim. Like when you go on vacation, you go someplace to the aquarium and you see the women with fake mermaid tails swimming around. So it's not a new thing. This is inhabiting the spirit. This is like when they do rituals in the past. What's the oldest ritual? You want to invoke the spirit of the thing, so you pretend to be it. You go method. They call it method acting now. Well, if you really want to be the Joker, you have to go method, and you can only be referred to as Mr. Joe. Like, Jared, can you please, here's your coffee. He's like, call me Joker. And he gives you a cardboard box with used rubbers and dead rats in it and everything. That's going method. Jim Carrey being a nuisance on his movies where he's like, yeah, I'm only the mask. You can't talk to me. You're only talking to the mask of Loki or whatever he did. And he pretended to be Andy Kaufman. And it makes you crazy. That's method acting. Is you can't turn it off. Well, that's the oldest ritual there is, where you dress up like the thing. You want to go on a hunt, so you invoke the spirit of the thing, and then you do a mock killing of the buffalo or whatever it is. Or you just you want to get the attention of the spirit of one of your Hindu pantheon of demons, fallen angels, whatever. So you dress up like the thing, and people venerate you. And then you act out, you do a play, you do a LARP, basically. And then you get possessed. Or a voodoo ritual where you get worked up and you hear the drum beats and the music, maybe take some drugs, and then the demon gets in a person and they ride them and they contort all around, and that's a voodoo ritual. One of the most transformative experiences in the life of Bill and Hillary is when they went to Haiti in 1975 for their honeymoon, and they witnessed a voodoo ritual. And I have the book. I'll have to get it out for one of these videos. It's the autobiography of Bill Clinton, which is a surprisingly thick book. And I read that. It's in there. He says that him and Hillary went to Haiti and they witnessed a voodoo ritual, and it was one of the most, no, it was the most transformative experience of his life. Yeah, because the demons took him, and Hillary probably. Now she shits some diapers probably, and they're evil, and they frazzle drip and all that stuff. So it means what I say that it means. It's my wit word. That's Bill Clinton now. Yeah, so the demons got him on their honeymoon or whatever in Haiti because they witnessed a voodoo ritual and they got possessed. That's my theory. So there's been a lot of movies in recent times. One of the movies that I remember hearing about when it was new, because it did get a significant amount of attention, was called The Lure, where it was two mermaids come to land and they become models. And it just becomes a known thing in the world that there are mermaids. So they do photo shoots, and there's a lot of topless scenes, because I was looking for images and I'm like, geez, there's a lot of I can't use these thumbnails without censoring them. So here's some stills from The Lure, probably with some censorship. It looked like they have eel tails and stuff like that. And again, I think it has a tragic ending like Hans Christian Andersen's The Little Mermaid. I think they die at the end, because I think spoiler alert for The Lure. That was one, and I think it's a Russian movie or from another country or Scandinavian or something. I think it was The Lure was a movie from another country, and it was about mermaids, and they eat people, and they're mean, and they do all the things you would expect real mermaids to do. They're not sweet like Ariel and her dad and everything like that. They're bad mermaids. They're not like Neptune in SpongeBob, and they're not nice. There's also a movie called Cold Skin, and if mermaids are alive today, and if they're real, which probably they are, they're probably real. I don't know if they exist anymore. Do you ever see the videos that show up? Like, here's another clip thing. It's not a clip, it's just like a slide where they take a fish and they cut it off, and then they put some weeds and smush around it, and then they have somebody laying on the sand pretending to be a beached mermaid. There's a lot of fake stuff of fake mermaids. So here's like a couple slides of fake mermaids. One of them looks like AI. There's like a bunch of fishermen and they've caught a mermaid, but if you look at her arm, that looks like AI generated imagery, because her arm twists impossibly, and you're like, yeah, there's no bone in there. So here's that. You might want to check the video out, because the first slide I showed, there's a video of like, there's a couple of these I think where it's like a fake mermaid flopping around and people are around and going, oh my, but that's not a mermaid. That's obviously somebody buried in the sand and they're flopped. It's like fake. But I don't know, it's pretty crazy, right? I'm trying to think of The Lighthouse, whatever that movie's about. I haven't seen it, but a lot of people talked about liking that movie, and that director is the guy that made The Lighthouse, the same guy that made that movie Vitch. Is it the same director? Because that's a creepy movie. Did you ever see Vitch? Don't watch it. It has a terrible ending where a woman sacrifices her baby brother so that she can become a witch, and she becomes a liberated woman after her family's dead, and Black Phillip kills her family, which is a goat or whatever. You thought that was what's that comedian guy? Patrice O'Neill, not that Black Phillip, the other, the bitch. So anyway, there was Lighthouse. There's a sex scene where Robert Pattinson has sex with a mermaid. I don't know what that means. But that's the plot point of the movie. So mermaids are coming back into popular attention again. But if they are real, which I mean they probably are, right? And it's a weird thing to say. Like I'm almost embarrassed to say, like, well, probably mermaids are real. But if they are, they're ugly. And if a woman that's a mermaid or a siren are dead, they probably didn't go to heaven. So another weird thing about mermaids that makes them not, or sirens rather, that makes them not so cool, whether it's a fish siren or a bird siren, that once they're dead, they probably are doomed to haunt the earth. They don't get into heaven or hell. They're probably, this is in the realm of demons and unclean spirits and stuff. So again, this is just a guess from me. But since the sirens and the mermaids probably die, I don't know if they continue going on. You know, how could they still be alive? These are probably in the realm of bad spirits. Like when you go to sleep and you're in the spiritual realm, it's probably possible to be preyed upon, if what I'm even saying, which is just my speculating, that it could be possible that, you know, sirens are trying to get you into evil covenants in your sleep and your dreams by having sex with you, by having nocturnal emissions. I did like multiple episodes on Leviticus. I think it's Leviticus 15 or 18 or both, where it's like laws of bodily discharge, and they talk about blood, no blood play, don't drink blood, but also like if you have nocturnal emission, you're unclean. It's all laying down the law in the Old Testament of how he wanted them to behave, because it would be for their good. So there's all these, you know, like nocturnal emissions was a bad thing. I think why in the Old Testament there was like all kinds of why you were made unclean by having nocturnal emission or discharge of semen, which is what it was about. Is about blood and semen, all right? I think that's because it's spiritual warfare, and if you had a nocturnal emission, you were not just having sex or sleeping too close to the heat or whatever. You were probably being preyed upon in your sleep, in your dreams, maybe by sirens or maybe by demons that just wanted to have sex with you, and that caused you to spill seed. And that's why God put that into the law for them back then. I don't know how that stuff in Leviticus holds up to, you know, after Jesus has been here, and we're even further degraded probably than we were back then, for all I know. So maybe sirens, mermaids, or bird sirens perhaps now are in the realm of the spiritual, and probably they're not beautiful. Like they do sexy sirens. Like, did you ever see Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? It's a Coen Brothers movie, which is the retelling of the Odyssey, but it's like a modernized version of the Odyssey, and told in the time. And that's the one with George Clooney and John Turturro, I think, and all those other people that are in, and John Goodman's in the Odyssey, pre-Ozempic John Goodman, and he played the Cyclops because he had one eye. So that's a retelling of Odyssey, Coen Brothers style. And do you remember the Sirens? The Sirens tried to distract George Clooney and his brothers, or whoever those other guys were, his friends or whatever. I don't remember it so much anymore. So the Sirens show up. So here I'll try and put in the gif of the sexy sirens, and they're all like, again, they're supposed to be seductive, and they're causing trouble, and they have to get away from the sirens. So here's like a gif or something, and maybe a slide in a gif of the characters being seduced by the sirens, and little wet t-shirt stuff. Don't worry, I can get, it's not obscene. Yeah, how about it? Those are the sirens, right? That's just, I just wanted to put that in there because it's like, it's a retelling of the Odyssey and the sirens in it. Now here's an interesting one I wish I would like to have had more details on, but I'm going to throw it in because I think it's interesting. There, I think it was Lauren McKenna, who is more pop. We're going to talk about the Sirens in the UK and luring men to their deaths. There is some kind of song that you're not, it's an old song, and you're not supposed to sing it, because if you do and you have a husband, something's going to happen bad to the men in your life. And I think it was Lorna McKenna, or whatever her name is, was a singer, and she sang that song, and then not long after that her husband died or drowned or something. And then other women have sung that song, and then something bad happened to their husbands where they perished or something. I think even it was one of them drowned or something. And I'm not sure about this, but I think maybe even one of those women was Beth Orton, where she sang this song of the Sirens that's not supposed to be sung. And then maybe something happened to her man. I'm not sure about it. But have you heard about this? Maybe in the comments you have more details than I do. I should have researched it before I told it to you, but I'm making the episode now, so the opportunity to research it has passed, unless I tack that on to the end of this episode, which I may or may not do. But have you heard about this? That it was, like other side of the, I'm in America, on the other side of the pond in the UK, there was this song, like the song of the Selkies or the Sylphs or whatever. They weren't supposed to sing. I want to talk about J.W. Waterhouse again, because I think it's an interesting thing. When I was a young guy, I was impressed by the paintings of J.W. Waterhouse, because he had these pre-Raphaelite beauties, and I thought the women that he painted were very beautiful, and I was kind of wrapped up in that. And now that I'm older, I'm like, yeah, he was obsessed with sirens and sylphs and water nymphs, and the guy's name is J.W. Waterhouse. I think it's James William Waterhouse. His surname is Waterhouse, and the guy was obsessed with mermaids, and he always painted these beautiful women. But if you pay attention, they're usually leading men to their deaths. The painting you saw of Ulysses tied to the mast with the bird sirens flying around him, that's J.W. Waterhouse. Here's some other paintings of J.W. Waterhouse. There's Hylas and the nymphs, or the sylphs. No, the nymphs. And the sylphs are like a form of siren that they look like seals, but when they shed their seal skin, they there's like a famous story. Again, it's like a British thing or English thing, where the guy fell in love with a sylph or a selkie or whatever, and they look like seals, but then their seal skin comes off and it's a beautiful woman underneath there. Well, anyway, J.W. Waterhouse, whose surname is Waterhouse, I say that again just to exaggerate it to clarify. He was obsessed with painting these beautiful women, and they like lead men to their deaths. So maybe there's some. I mean, I don't know where J.W. Waterhouse was impressed by this, and I was so much that when I was in college, we had to take like a painting and like do a reproduction of whatever painting we chose from history. And kids that wanted an easy assignment picked like a Jackson Pollock, and they just drizzled paint, or some kind of ugly Picasso piece, and they're like, that's easy to do, it's just pointless, it's ugly and easy to do, so I'll just do that, even though it probably wasn't easy to do any of the things they imitated. I picked a J.W. Waterhouse painting, which just for the fun of it. Here's the painting I had to reproduce in college. I don't have my reproduction anymore. This is the original painting. It was a J.W. Waterhouse, so I'll put that right here. When I handed that in to the teacher, well, he saw me painting it along the way, but when it was done, he looked at it, and he was kind of like he liked me and everything, but he's also kind of making fun of me. And he looked at me and he said, "Ah, I see." He said, "Out of our heart, straight out of our dreams into our hearts, right?" And he knew that basically, we didn't have this word back then, but I was gooning over the girl in the painting, because I did think that the J.W. Waterhouse, the way that he painted women, was very beautiful. And they, again, I guess I would call it like pre-Raphaelite beauty. It was like a style or a theme. There's a lot of artwork with that same type of stuff. But since Waterhouse's work had a lot of fantasy stuff in it, it appealed to me. And, you know, and the beauty of the women, they always had their boobs hanging out, and I was a young horny guy or whatever, and I had a girlfriend with the pale skin, and she looked like one of them. She looked like a pre-Raphaelite beauty. What's a pre-Raphaelite beauty? The type of women that are the impossible model types, that they like the women that have become models that don't need makeup and stuff. They just have everything, and just maybe give them some lipstick, and that's all they need, and they just give you these, you know, like looks like they're unattainable or whatever. So anyway, so you've seen enough of the Waterhouse stuff. I just showed you a bunch of stuff. You think that's how women looked back then? Well, the Waterhouse paintings aren't that old. But anyway, the point was that it takes a long time to paint those paintings in the way that he did, because they're oil paintings. So his name was Waterhouse, and he was obsessed with water women, which I think is interesting. And these women, you know, maybe this is some kind of influence of the demonic in Waterhouse's life that may have had something to do with his lineage. I know I'm really stretching and reaching for that, but sometimes there is meaning behind, like, your surname and then things about you, and, you know, family history stuff. So I wonder, you know, because he really did, like, he spent a lot of time painting these water women, like some of the images you've seen. And there's more. Those are just a couple of the works of Waterhouse. And again, look at the women in those paintings. They all have red hair. So go look at think of all the slides I did and how consistent a theme it is with the mermaids and the red hair. And I think it relates to the Nephilim and Esau from the Bible, because his name means red and hairy. I saw Esau and Esau you. You know that? That's like they used to sing that on the playground. I saw Esau and Esau you. So, am I wrong about that, or is it just an Iona Opie poem? Even know who that is? Probably not. Doesn't matter. So, yeah, mermaids. Ariel turned into sea foam. I don't know if you know that. I tried to find some GIFs. I tried to find some, like, Little Mermaid GIFs, or like animated versions of Hans Christian Andersen's Little Mermaid, where she turns into sea foam at the end, because I think that was done. Like, probably a Japanese studio or something did the Little Mermaid, where she died at the end before Disney ever thought about ripping it off and giving it a happy ending, like they did with The Lion King. I couldn't find any, but what I did find was a dirty gift that I can't even show you. Was no need to save it, but I saw it, and it was disgusting. And it was 3 Disney princesses, a group effort on worshiping a phallus. And it looked like, I was like, whoa, I don't know if AI made it or whatever, but it was an animated GIF, and they're giving a grade A love 'em up to a phallus, and it was Snow White and a Little Mermaid, and I don't know, one of the other, like, one of the other Disney princesses, and I was like, I think it was Beauty and the Beast or something. And was that done by a former Disney animator? Or was that AI generated imagery? Anyway, it was pretty disgusting. I, set nothing wicked before your eyes, but I saw that and I was like, that'd be so funny if I could censor it somehow and show you just how well done it was. And I'm like, there's probably countless stuff like that online where animators are animating pornographic things, and it's really convincing, and it looks like it's right out of Disney or your favorite anime or whatever, but I don't want to see those things. So, but that, yeah, I looked up a Little Mermaid GIF, and there she was polishing a knob with Snow White and Belle from Beauty and the Beast, or whoever the hell it was, Yasmin, I can't remember who the third one was. I was like, that's awful. But yeah, there's mermaids. They're bad news, maybe, and there's a lot of encouragement. Like if you go to the store, they're still selling Little Mermaid stuff. I mean, and not just for the new movie. Like, they're still basically the merch they're trying to sell for the Little Mermaid is that cartoon from the 1990s, and it hasn't never gone away. It's still been around. It still stays around. And I said, like, the impetus for me doing this episode is because somebody that near and dear to me, I found out that they loved mermaid stuff, and I'm like, oh no, that's awful. Like, you don't know what they are. So maybe I will put this episode on a thumb drive, or now that I've done this episode, I can explain to her why that it's terrible that you would like mermaids, because they're basically witches, right? And I'm trying to think of other I will put in some more slides here. I think that if mermaids are alive, they're probably ugly, and they probably look like more of these poor resolution slides that I'm showing you. There's a movie called Skin where it's like man is evil, but there's like mermaid people in it. Oh, how I can keep talking about mermaids. Guillermo del Weirdo did the movie called Shape of Water, and he's the one that did the Hellboy, the first two Hellboy movies. I think he's a Spanish guy, and he said, "I want to make the woman fall in love with the fish." So in Hellboy, there's a character that's one of the son of Satan's friends is a fish man. He's a merman. I don't know biblically if there's mermen, unless the women that were mermaids gave birth and then they had mer babies. I don't know anything about that. It's not in the Bible. But he did The Shape of Water, and this is an odd thing about Guillermo del Weirdo. He said that when he made Pan's Labyrinth. That's the other movie I couldn't think of. Guillermo del Toro made Pan's Labyrinth. And in interviews that you can find yourself, he says that when he was a kid, that Pan used to visit him. Do you know the story of Pan? Pan was a kidnapper. When they used the word kidnapping, it meant that as a kid is the child of the goat, and that the kids would nap the children. It's not that the kidnapper is the person who takes the children away when a child gets kidnapped. But in the past, it was those guys with the goat legs and the horn. They were abusers of children in the way that you know what I mean when I say that. They would take children away and abuse them, and they'd get molested and everything. So Guillermo del Toro has fond memories of his childhood, where he said all throughout his growing up when he was little that Pan came to visit him, and then he liked him. So when he made Pan's Labyrinth, you can see what an evil, ugly, demonic creature Pan looks like in his movie. And Guillermo del Toro designed it because he's an artist. He's pretty decent. I think he started in effects or something maybe. And now he's the big director. But he used to get visited by Pan. And if you've seen Pan's Labyrinth, it's a disgusting, ugly film with a horrible ending. And I don't know what's poetic or artful about it. It's terrible. But he also made The Shape of Water, where the woman falls in love with the fish. That's weird. Alright? So fish people equals realm of the demonic. That's not a good thing. I'm not saying that, when Jesus told the apostles to go out and preach the word to every living creature, that may mean that there were creatures. So maybe the apostles went around and preached to fishmen, and the fishmen came to Jesus. I don't know. But anyway, The Shape of Water was not about that. It's about that girl from Portlandia falling in love with a creature from the Black Lagoon. So you remember Creature from the Black Lagoon? It's a mermaid man, and he falls in love with a human woman and tries to take her away. That's sort of relevant to the mermaid episode, because it's not a mermaid that tries to lure a man to its death. It's a merman that tries to steal away a beautiful woman. And that definitely had a big influence on Guillermo del Weirdo, because then he made the movie where the woman gets sexy with the fish. I wanted to see the woman make love to the fish, or the fish make love to the woman. That's weird. Why would you want to do that? And I know he lied and he said it was a metaphor about, like interracial love or whatever. But the guy's it's a demon. It's a mermaid man. That's weird. Anyway, mermaids. So anyway you slice it, they're bad. And there's so many movies that have come out. It is a genre of horror. I guess this will be my final note on the mermaid stuff for this episode. That it's a genre of mermaid horror. So it's become like, like the old gods. We have you know, Thor and the old gods with all the Marvel stuff, bringing back the old pantheon of gods back to popular attention so that they get venerated through the movies, through the superheroes. Do you realize that that's venerating the old gods? Well, there's a genre of horror movie now that's like mermaid horror, because there's so many of these movies, because it's like, you know, you get a sexy woman, have her topless. Well, there's a whole bunch of these movies. Go look up mermaid movies in the last 10 years. There's like a lot of them. And, you know, I'm not going to see any of them. And I mentioned a whole bunch of mermaid stuff that you know, like The Lighthouse and Cold Skin, which is about mermaid people. And like, if mermaids are alive, they probably are ugly like the ones in Cold Skin. At least I want them to be. Maybe a thing of spiritual warfare when you sleep, that mermaid spirits are trying to have sex with you. Could be. I'm trying to get you to be, they want to be your goo-goo doll, whatever, I don't know. And what's the other mermaid movie? The remake of The Little Mermaid. But it's deceptive. And then there's the whole genre of the mermaid horror thing, which is the whole point of me, you know, wrapping the video up with this. It's drawing attention. Your energy flows to, your attention goes and your energy flows to the thing that you're paying attention to. So it is a form of, I would say, idol worship that's unwitting to you. And God knows that you don't know that's what you're doing. But we know that women like mermaids, and there's all kinds of stuff you can buy of mermaids. Everybody for years now has been talking about Starbucks coffee, and it's got a mermaid. She's spreading her legs for you. That's dirty. You've seen the sculpture. You already know the Starbucks logo. I showed you the sculpture earlier where the mermaid's holding their tails in her hands, and you get in there, and she's topless, and it's a sexual thing. And it's bad news for you. And there's all these dirty mermaid movies where they're man-eaters, basically. Should I bring succubuses in it? Oh, Peter Pan was the other thing. Here's a gift from Peter Pan. I think it's the Peter Pan movie with Hugh Jackman where he plays Captain Hook. And here's a gift of the mermaids coming out of the water, and they have red hair. And then here's some images, so I'll put that in here. So, see? They have the red hair. It's like a consistent theme. I don't think that's just because of Little Mermaid. I think that's some kind of like whispering to have influence over us to make sure they have red hair, because that's all part of it, right? And what's another thing that's interesting about Japan, to bring Japan in this? Do you know? I've done so many videos on Japan. I know they're not up anymore. I'm sorry. They'll probably come back. Not the old videos, but new versions of those videos. So in Japan, you know they have a thing for redheads, right? They totally do. Japanese are obsessed with redheaded women, and you know none of the Japanese women are redheads unless they put a peroxide on their hair, and it makes it that weird brassy orange or whatever. But what is that about? Where in the history of Japan does the fetishizing of redheaded women come in? Because they don't have any. Japanese people don't make redheaded women. Everybody in Japan has black hair. It's not like the Ottoman Empire where somebody says that they're Turkish and you could have any kind of color hair or eyes. No, in Japan they all have black hair and brown eyes, and it doesn't, you know, it doesn't change. Where does weird pagan Shinto Japan, who believes that Godzilla is the one that guards over them and all this stuff, and they believe in the kami, K-A-M-I, and it's even in Dragon Ball Z where they have a kami and it's the guardian of the earth, and it's like a green lizard man with deedly bobbers, and that's like Piccolo's grandpa or whatever. Remember that from Dragon Ball Z? That's the kami. They believe that there's a spirit, a big spirit that watches over them, and that's Godzilla, because Godzilla kind of requires some human sacrifice, and he creates collateral damage, but then he also gets rid of other demons to protect Japan. And it also makes me think of Leviathan and the Kraken. You thought Kraken was just a good whiskey? No, you shouldn't be drinking whiskey. Stop that. But the Kraken is from Greek mythology, and it's a sea creature, and Perseus cuts the head off of Medusa and shows it to the Kraken to kill it so that he can be with Cassiopeia because she's so hot. Again, all this stuff for women. Or is it Cassiopeia? Who was the one that Perseus was after? I think it was Cassiopeia. I can't remember anymore. So, and besides, I remember the story of Perseus more from the Ray Harryhausen movie Clash of the Titans than I do from actual Greek mythology. So there you go. Go watch Clash of the Titans, not that new version from the 2000s. Go watch the Ray Harryhausen version. That's pretty interesting. That was one of my favorite movies when I was a younger guy. I was like, that's so cool. That was like the height of his stop motion stuff before Phil Tippett came in and did better. So yeah, anyway, the Japs like redheads. What's that about? Does it have something to do with Nephilim stuff? Think about the courts, like Queen Elizabeth and stuff, and how they'd paint their skin pale and have red hair, and they wanted, this was wanting to be like considered what's upper class in the past. It's probably going back to this Nephilim stuff where they have the red hair and the pale skin, because this is descriptions of Nephilim, and maybe it has something to do with angels laying with human women, and then you get pale skin, or red and hairy with pale skin underneath. But and clowns painting their faces white and making their hair red. That's a popular clown face, right? There's Bozo the Clown, there's Pennywise from It, and you tell me other famous movie and TV clowns with the, you know, the red hair and the white skin. And that's all. Go look at the Paul Stobbs book, The Nephilim Are Clowns, or even for better, for free. Just go to his channel and watch all his Nephilim clown videos, and he gives you substantiation through history that the Nephilim and clowns, it's like this. It's not even like this. It's like this. It's like fingers on the same hand. It's connected. It's not like connected like this. It's just, it's a reflection. It's going method. When somebody imitates a Nephilim, then the spirits of the dead Nephilim can inhabit that clown and take over. And that's why you get killer clowns from outer space, right? They all had like different colored hair, right? Or did they all have red hair? I don't know, but that was a popular, it was like a one-off movie from the 1980s and never went away. They have all this BS like the Insane Clown Posse. Hey, go to Gathering of the Juggalos and get high on, do whippets and take all these drugs and go to Demon Palooza, which is basically Gathering of the Juggalos, is, you know, get high, camp out, and get possessed, basically. Imitating clowns. And then there's all the Terrifier stuff. But this is about mermaids, so I'm going to end this now. Mermaids are bad. You have a little kid and they're into mermaid stuff. Maybe they shouldn't be. Maybe it's a bad thing to want to imitate things that that they exist only because God was so displeased with what these women had done as the first witches, that their punishment was to be, you know, like part bird, part woman, or part fish, part sea serpent, part woman. It's a punishment. It's not a thing to venerate. You shouldn't, all the little girls going around, I know that the little girls aren't evil, it's an innocent thing, but it's just getting your children to venerate images that aren't God. You know, that's Ariel, Little Mermaid. No matter what color her skin is, she's got red hair and a tail of a fish. That's a witch. That's a punishment. That's a siren. And yeah, like maybe I hope this video was, you could glean something out of this, that if you have little ones around or your girlfriend likes mermaids or whatever, you get turned on, you go to DeviantArt and have AI prompts, make Taylor Swift a mermaid or whatever girl you like. Maybe you shouldn't, because they lure men to their deaths. It's the point of the sexy siren. That's why they call them that in the pop music. The sexy song, the sexy siren of Katy Perry, maybe not so much anymore, but you know, whoever it was, they would call them sirens, they would call them divas. It's all bad things, and it's all about hypnotizing and mesmerizing women, mesmerizing men and women, I guess, with those songs. And it's bad for you to want to imitate that. You don't want to be a diva. You don't want to be a mermaid or a witch or do witch talks or like Harry Potter. I'm glad that whole Harry Potter stuff passed over my progeny. They didn't care about Harry Potter. They didn't care about Pokemon or any of that stuff. So it's good. I didn't tell them not to. They just didn't like it. I was dumb back then. I was like, oh, you want to like this? Just go see the movie. And then they didn't care. And I was like, great, I don't have to spend any money on Harry Potter shit. I don't have to spend money on Pokemon stuff. I think they had a couple of Pokemons. It didn't mean anything to them, though. Throw them away. But Mermaids is bad news. You know, I hate the idea of people like picking on kids and like, but maybe you could find some way if there's little ones in your life and they're into the mermaid stuff. You know, probably not going to understand your explanations that they were witches or something like that. Why do you want to traumatize a child about telling them that here, I got you the Hans Christian Andersen version of The Little Mermaid, and then they read it and they're like, what? She turns into sea foam. I don't know if that's a good thing. So you're going to have to figure that out for yourself if you have little ones and you want to discourage them from mermaids. But this episode is me trying to find out things about mermaids, which are the sirens, and not only are they fish, they're also turned into birds with tits. So maybe, you know, maybe it's a thing to find your way to ask God for help. You can pray for this, please, Lord. She loves the Little Mermaid stuff. How do I find something else for this kid to latch onto that's not about women that were punished by you for having sexy time with angels? I don't know. So anyway, you know, what do I say down here? Do I have to end every episode with this? It's Planet Daddy issue down here. Call your father, ask for help. You can pray to God. Amen to that.